Storytime is brought to you by the parents and kids of Aretas Cross Freedom School, founded by Reverend Dr. Heber Brown III. It's recorded in Baltimore, Maryland in the year 2020 and was inspired by LeVar Burton's Reading Rainbow.
Yo, what's good? It's Storytime, Dr. Connolly. A reading show that takes you on an odyssey. School is out, it's best that you probably get your boredom, suppress it, your personal professor. Get together, be ready for whatever. Books and treasure from B-Mall to bless ya. It's story time!
Welcome, kids, to Storytime with Dr. Connolly, your personal professor. Now, this here guitar is a gift that I got from my mother more than 10 years ago. She gave it to me as a congratulations for finishing my PhD and becoming a doctor officially, so I can be Dr. Connolly. Now, even though I got this guitar more than 10 years ago, I actually don't know how to play it. It seems that in all the very important work that a professor has to do, I never took the time to actually learn the lessons I needed to be able to play a song for my mom, for my kids, for anybody, really. And so in a way, this guitar reminds me of the blues, reminds me of having a dream or certain kinds of aspirations, but for whatever reason, things tend to get in the way. Well, it's not entirely unlike the story for this week, The Blues of Flats Brown. This story is about a dog who has a genuine talent for playing the guitar and for using the blues to transform the world around him. I think, taking Flats Brown as a model, I just may get around to learning this guitar sometime pretty soon. Let's give it a try now. I got the can't play the guitar that I own for 10 years blues. I got the can't play the guitar I own for 10 years blues. And if I'm gonna learn this guitar, it's gonna be for reasons that I choose. The Blues of Flats Brown by Walter Dean Myers. Illustrated by Nina Layden. This here's a story of Flats Brown, the blues playingest dog you ever heard of. If you ain't never heard of Flats, that's okay, because he probably never heard of you either. Flats was born in a junkyard way down in Mound Bayou, Mississippi. The junkyard was owned by a man named A.J. Grubbs. Now, A.J. Grubbs was the meanest man in Mound Bayou. He was so mean, he didn't even like himself. He had a little piece of mirror on the door of the hut he slept in, and every time he saw his face in it, he spit on it. Grubbs had two dogs, Flats and Caleb, and he was mean to both of them. Flats was young, no more than a teenager in dog years. Caleb was old and had a touch of arthritis in his hip, but he had a good heart. What Flats liked to do most was play the blues. He had an old national guitar, and he could just about make that thing sing. He would spend all his free time sitting and picking out tunes on that guitar and singing. Did I tell you he could sing? Man, he could sing up a storm, you hear me? A.J. Grubbs had other ideas. He wanted Flats and Caleb to be fighting dogs so he could brag on them. One night, Grubbs brought some strangers into the junkyard. They had a big, ugly bulldog with them. "Caleb, what they fixing to do?" Flats asked. "I think they're going to make me fight that dog," Caleb said. "Caleb, you're too old," Flat said. "That dog will—" "I know," Caleb said, "I know." It was a terrible fight, with barking and growling and yelping all over the place. Caleb was hurt real bad. "You stupid dog," A.J. Grubbs kicked Caleb. "You're making me look stupid. Flats will fight tomorrow, and he'd better win." "Caleb, I'm not a fighting dog," Flat said when A.J. Grubbs had left him. "I'm a blues-playing dog." "I know," Caleb said. "We gotta run away from here." That night, when the moon was behind a cloud, the two friends crawled under the fence. "Caleb, why is AJ so mean?" Flats asked when they had gone outside. "Sometimes I think he's like the junk in that yard," Caleb said. "Just a throw-it-away man." Flats and Caleb made their way down to Shantytown. They lived where they could and made enough money to eat by Flats playing on the street. People would listen to him playing the blues and would throw them coins. "Hey, you the blues-playing dog everybody talking about?" a man with a gold tooth asked one day. "Yeah, that's me," Flats said. "Well, why don't you come play in my club?" the man asked. That's how Flats got to play in a black club called the Curly Q. Every night, Flats played and Caleb backed him up on the bones. Flats put down some mean sounds. He played the bent tail blues, the mangy muzzle stomp, and his favorite, the freaky flea blues, just like he owned them. But one day, right in the middle of the bad barking blues, who come in the door but A.J. Grubbs? "You're my dog," Grubbs called out, "and I'm here to get you and take you back to the junkyard." Grubbs tried to drag Flats out of the club. He would have done it too if Caleb hadn't chomped down on his leg. While Grubbs hopped around on one foot, Flats and Caleb hot-pawed out the front door. They were really scared as they took to the road again. They didn't stop this time until they got clear to Memphis, Tennessee. "If we keep playing on the street, A.J. Grubbs will find us again," Flat said. "I can't stand no fighting." "Maybe you can make a record," Caleb said, looking up at a sign for Imperial Records. They found a little recording studio on Beale Street. The man in the studio said he'd never heard of a blues-playing dog, but he gave Flats a chance. Flats sat on a stool and played a little song he'd written himself called "The Junkyard Heap." The man hired him on the spot. People who heard Flats' record wondered where he'd come from. Some were saying he had 6 fingers on each paw, and some said that his wife had run off to Mexico and left him with a broken heart. None of that was true, but it sold a lot of records. You can imagine what happened next. Old A.J. Grubbs, bad breath and all, showed up at the recording studio, sweating and acting ugly. "That dog is mine," Grubbs hollered, "and I come to get him." Flats jumped out the window and Caleb ran out the back door. They ran down an alley, cut through a tent revival meeting, and didn't stop until they reached the railroad tracks. They were dead tired as they waited for a train going north. When it came, Caleb put his arms around Flats and said goodbye. "Goodbye?" Flats looked at his best friend. "Flats, I'm too old to be running like this," Caleb said. "You're young and you got a lot of life and a lot of music in you." "But Caleb, we're a team," Flats said, choking back the tears. "It's you that Grubbs is after," Caleb said. "You got to go, and Caleb got to stay behind. Go on now, boy. Here comes the midnight special." Flats felt bad, but he knew Caleb was right. The old dog was too beat down and too weary to run anymore. On the train, Flats wrote a real sad song called "The Dog Gone Long Gone Blues." He dedicated that song to his friend, Caleb. New York City was the biggest place Flats ever did see. For a while, he just wandered the streets, looking at the tall buildings and feeling as out of place as a three-legged skunk at a Georgia hoedown. By the time he found a place where he played the blues, he was skinny as a rail. Blind Buddy Doyle, the king of the country blues, was the owner, and he told Flats to sit down and play. Flats was nervous, but he started to play. He played the sounds of the waterfront in Mount Bayou and the music from the little church down the street from the Junkyard. He played the lonely sounds of a freight train and the hot sounds of the curlicue. He really put his heart and soul into his playing. "I might be blind," Blind Buddy Doyle said, "but I can see the dream you're playing." Flats got the job and did good, real good. Everybody got to loving him, but I guess you know what the wind blew in one stormy night. That's right, it was A.J. Grubbs. Soon as Flats saw Grubbs, he remembered what Caleb had said when he stayed back in Memphis. He sat down and started playing a little tune he called "Ain't No Use Runnin' Blues." "I got you now," Grubbs said. "You're going back with me." Flats felt lower than a bow-legged worm, but then he thought about what Caleb had said, that Grubbs was just like the junk in his yard. He was a throwed-away man. Flats felt bad about going back to Mount Bayou, but he felt bad for Grubbs, too. "Mr. Grubbs, I just want to play one more tune before I go," Flats said. "This is a song I wrote called The Gritty Grubbs Blues. It goes like this." Flats started playing the Gritty Grubbs Blues about a man nobody understood and everybody thought was bad because he lived in a junkyard. As Flats played, the tears started streaming down Grubbs' face. That song touched Grubbs deep inside, the way blues does sometimes. "Flats, that is the best song I have ever heard," he said when Flats was done playing. "You go on playing that song, and I will go on back home and leave you in peace." And with that, A.J. Grubbs picked himself up and walked right out the door. All he needed was for somebody to show him a little love. After that, everybody thought Flats was going to stay in New York and get filthy rich. What they didn't know was that Flats was a blues-playing kind of dog, not a filthy rich kind of dog. About a week later, Flats got his guitar, packed up some fried chicken in a cardboard suitcase, and left New York. That was the last time anybody around there heard from Flats. Once in a while, people from Savannah, Georgia would talk about two dogs that played the blues down near the waterfront. They say one dog played guitar and the other backed him up on the bones, and their favorite tune was the Freaky Flea Blues. Some people don't believe that. I do. The end.
Yo, what's good? It's Storytime, Dr. Connolly.
Hi, my name is Clark, and I'm here to ask you a question about the story, The Blues of Flats Brown. Do you have a favorite talent? My favorite talent is art and graphic design because it opens me up to a world of my own that I can do anything I want with it. Thank you, and thanks for watching.
Oh snap! Who plays the blues? In the late 19th and early 20th centuries, Black Americans in the South created the blues to express the beauty and ugliness of working class life. They combined work songs, Christian hymns, and everyday speech into a music meant to capture a blue feeling. The feeling that one faced personal challenges, but also had the desire to keep on living. Blues music offered African Americans a way to express themselves. it provided cultural support at a time when racism had snatched away black voting rights and when many black families were still piecing together relationships torn apart by slavery. In the early days of the music, blues musicians and their patrons built dance halls or juke joints made of repurposed building materials. These provided the perfect place for a music and people of new purpose. Black people never stopped fighting for freedom or preserving their history. And across all those struggles, juke joints and blues allowed black people to move their bodies and profess their experiences far from the ears and eyes of bosses or landlords. But the blues explored much more than just politics or trouble on the job. The music elevated the interior, emotional lives of black people. And soon, the themes of love, perseverance, hardship, and mischief that the blues conveyed gave the music and its people universal reach. In the 1920s, jam sessions in juke joints gave way to broadcasts. In place of traveling musicians, vinyl records sold around the country and eventually around the world. New technology turned hollowed-out acoustic guitars into guitars shot through with electricity. And as the music changed, so did the expressive power of blues people. Over the last century, the blues gave birth to jazz, rock, hip-hop, and what we today simply call R&B, which stands for, you guessed it, rhythm and blues. Digital platforms have now arrived, but the music remains what it always was. It's historical and timeless, and it's still up to us to build a world worthy of that music.